Good afternoon. It's September 11, 2024. We're critiquing the news, and the story at hand is Starfish Cycle of Destruction. This is one of an endless series of anti-reef reality articles published by the Cairns Post over many years, which seem designed to do nothing other than channel taxpayers' money to academics via gullible politicians to keep an industry going that's just basically squandering our wealth at this point. Now, the article talks about the crown of thorns starfish, the persistent coral predators, the devastation, the degradation that they cause, and how they seem to thrive in the very conditions that they create. But none of this is true. And the crown of thorns starfish is actually the only native species that Australian governments are waging a genocide against. And I often wonder if it's because they're black and spiky. Anyway, the old Torres Strait Island fishermen that I knew when I was a young bloke used to call the crown of thorns starfish the reef's gardener. They said it was absolutely vital, and its role was one of renewal, much the way a bushfire in parts of the Australian landscape will cause seeds to regenerate. And the reason it's demonised by the newspaper, the academic industrial complex, is because the early reef tour boats were very slow and creaky. They were almost as wide as they were long. They were tubs, really. And there's a company called Hales. If anyone did the reef boats in the early days out of Cairns, it would have been a Hales boat more than likely. And the tour operators didn't particularly like to have to go too far from Cairns. They didn't want to find new spots to anchor, so they had their favourite spots. And when the crown of thorns starfish went through the first time in that industry, which began in the 70s, early 70s, it was terribly distressing for them, and they hated and misunderstood the reef's gardener. So they engaged similarly minded scientists to help wipe them out, despite their absolutely essential evolutionary niche in reef health. So that became a very profitable business, funded by an endless stream of taxpayers' money, channeled through gullible politicians who want to save the environment. And of course, it gave the reef tour operators, a whole extra income stream. So they could use boats off-season or really any time. Their boats that were superseded, the boats that there was no demand for, they could fill them up with divers who'd go out to the reef and poison these poor bloody crown of thorns starfish. So the crown of thorns starfish is actually an essential component of the reef ecosystem. It's absolutely vital to the reef ecosystem. It predates human interactions with the reef by hundreds of thousands of years, because corals and the reef communities are some of the oldest communities on Earth. And the actual problem is human greed and human ignorance. And quite frankly, we'd be better off at this point shutting down the entire reef alarmist academic industry until we can implement the plans laid out by the great Professor Peter Ridd, who is probably the only honest reef academic that we've ever heard of, because he's the only one that's come out and said the truth, that there's no peer review in this field, and that it is absorbing vast amounts of taxpayers' money for no particularly good reason. And I haven't mentioned this on this video series yet. Look up the Cloward Piven strategy, and this sort of squandering of our wealth will make perfect sense.